Welcome to our deep dive, and today we're looking into something that I think you'll find really fascinating.
Yeah.
It's the power of refining your English accent.
Right.
We've got some pretty thought-provoking research here for this deep dive that goes way beyond just simply sounding good, you know?
Yeah.
So you're obviously here listening to this because you're interested in having greater clarity and confidence when you speak English.
For sure.
And that's what we're going to explore today.
Yeah.
We're going to explore why that matters so much and how you can actually get there.
Yeah.
Now, I know some of you listening might be thinking do I really need to sound perfectly native?
Right.
And that's totally a valid question.
Yeah, it is a good question.
And we are going to address it for sure.
Yeah.
So
what's so interesting about this topic is that the goal isn't about erasing your individual voice or trying to sound like somebody you're not. It's more about reaching a level of clarity and intelligibility that helps you connect with others and opens doors to new opportunities.
I love that.
A great example of this is Antonio Banderas.
Oh, yeah.
He has a very distinct accent, but it's very clear and it's engaging and, it hasn't hindered his success as an actor at all.
For sure.
He's really mastered that balance.
He really has.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not even just about individual success stories either. One of the studies that we have for this episode really highlights the impact of accent in a very specific context, and that is MBA programs.
Interesting.
Apparently, applicants with heavier accents were less likely to be accepted.
Wow.
Even if they had amazing qualifications on paper.
This is where it gets really intriguing.
Yeah.
The study went deeper and actually identified which types of accents were perceived more favorably.
Oh, wow.
So it seems that accents associated with certain regions or socioeconomic backgrounds were sometimes subconsciously linked to assumptions about communication skills or even competence.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And honestly, a little unsettling.
Yeah.
It really underscores the fact that, we strive to be objective as people, but unconscious biases can exist.
Yeah, for sure.
And in an increasingly interconnected world where English is often the language of business and academia and global communication.
Right.
A clear English accent can actually play a really significant role.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Think about it from the perspective of someone listening.
Right.
If they're constantly struggling to decipher what you're saying, it can create a barrier to understanding and connection.
Totally. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
I remember when I was learning Spanish, I was so focused on getting the grammar and vocabulary right that I really didn't pay much attention to my pronunciation.
Right.
But as my accent improved, something really interesting happened.
What was
I felt way more confident speaking.
Oh, wow.
Even if I made mistakes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You've hit on a crucial point there.
Okay.
One of our sources dives into this connection between confidence and language learning.
Right.
It turns out that when you're less anxious about your accent, you're more likely to practice and engage in conversations and really immerse yourself in the language.
For sure.
And this in turn accelerates your progress.
So it's like this positive feedback loop.
Exactly.
The more you practice and the clearer your pronunciation becomes, the more confident you feel, and that confidence fuels further learning.
Precisely. It becomes this virtuous cycle of improvement.
That's so cool.
Now, while confidence is key, we also need to look at the practical side of things.
Okay, let's get into that.
Mechanics of pronunciation.
Okay, so one of the sources really emphasizes understanding the why behind English pronunciation.
Yes.
Rather than just mimicking sounds.
Exactly. It's about moving beyond surface level imitation.
Right.
And grasping the underlying principles that govern how sounds are produced and connected in English.
Okay.
For instance.
Yeah.
Think about how we naturally blend words together in everyday speech. See, you often become saya. Right?
Right.
This is a common phenomenon called elision, where certain sounds are dropped or modified when words are spoken together.
Yeah. It's like the language has its own rhythm and flow.
It does.
And understanding those patterns is crucial for achieving that natural sounding pronunciation.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So we've talked about the flow of sounds.
Right.
But what about the individual sounds themselves?
Yeah.
English pronunciation can be really subtle.
It can be.
Especially for those whose native languages have very different sound systems.
Yeah, absolutely. One of our sources actually had a really interesting analogy to describe English pronunciation.
Okay, I'm listening.
They described it as being like a kangaroo.
Okay, kangaroo? I have to admit, I'm kind of curious to hear where this is going.
Okay, yeah. Well, they contrasted the rhythm of English with languages like Spanish or Italian, which they described as more like a machine gun. Very even and rapid fire. English, on the other hand, has this kind of bouncy, uneven rhythm. With stressed syllables and pauses that create a different kind of flow. So think about the phrase, how are you? It's not how were you. It's more like, how are you?
Okay, I see. So it's about like understanding where to place the emphasis.
Exactly.
And how to create those natural pauses. That makes sense. It's like learning the steps to a dance.
It is.
You have to get the timing and the rhythm right.
You do. Exactly. And just like with any dance practice is key. This source also pointed out that there's no like single universal rule for pronunciation in English. The spelling can be very deceptive. So you really have to learn each word individually.
Yeah, that does sound a bit daunting. But I remember the source also mentioned Google's free pronunciation tool. As a helpful resource. Can you tell us a bit more about how that works?
Absolutely. It's a fantastic tool. Especially for beginners. You can simply type in a word. And it will show you the phonetic transcription. Play an audio recording of the correct pronunciation. And even provide like example sentences.
That's so cool.
It's a great way to get immediate feedback and build your pronunciation skills.
Okay, so we've talked about rhythm. We've talked about individual words. Helpful tools like. What about the bigger picture? Are there common challenges that people tend to face when they're trying to improve their English accent?
Definitely. This source actually breaks down 5 main areas where accent-related problems often arise. Vowels, consonants.
Consonant clusters, intonation. And what they call eating words.
Eating words. Now that's a new one for me.
It's a rather humorous way of putting it. But it refers to the tendency to like drop sounds or shorten words. In a way that's common in some languages, but can make English sound unclear.
So like saying gonna instead of going to.
Exactly. Or saying can't instead of cannot. And while these shortened forms are perfectly acceptable in casual conversation, being aware of these tendencies can help you adjust your pronunciation for greater clarity in more formal settings or when you're communicating with people who aren't familiar with your accent.
That's a really helpful point. It's not about like eliminating these natural variations, but being mindful of how they might be perceived in different contexts. It's all about having that awareness and adapting your pronunciation to achieve the level of clarity and impact that you desire. Awesome. So it seems like awareness is a big theme here. Being aware of like our own pronunciation habits and the nuances of English pronunciation and even those like potential unconscious biases that might be out there.
Absolutely. And once we have that awareness, we can start to make conscious choices about how we want to refine our pronunciation. It's not about like becoming somebody else. It's about empowering yourself.
I love that.
To communicate more effectively and confidently.
And empowerment through pronunciation.
This
has been such an insightful deep dive.
It has.
We've gone way beyond just the surface level tips. And really explored like the why behind accent improvement. As well as like some of the how.
For sure.
So.
What stands out to you the most from all this information?
Well, I think for me, the link between confidence and learning was a real aha moment. It makes perfect sense.
It does. If you're constantly worried about how you sound, it's going to hold you back from like practicing and really engaging with the language.
I completely agree that fear can become a real barrier. And breaking through it can unlock so much potential for like growth and fluency.
Totally. So to recap for our listeners today. We've learned that refining your English accent is about like achieving clarity and boosting your confidence. Not about erasing your individuality.
It's not.
It's about opening doors to new opportunities and actually accelerating your language learning journey.
Exactly. And remember, your accent is a part of your unique story. It's what makes you you.
It is.
But choosing to refine it can be so empowering. It can open up a whole world of possibilities for connection and communication.
For sure. Don't be afraid to experiment with different techniques.
Yes.
Practice consistently, and most importantly, have fun with the process.
Beautifully said. Embrace your voice and the transformative power of refining it.
Awesome. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
We hope you found it informative and inspiring, and remember, your unique voice matters.
It does.
And we encourage you to continue exploring this fascinating world of language and pronunciation.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today on English Learning Podcast. I want to congratulate you for taking the time to improve your English. Every step counts, so keep moving forward and don't stop. If you enjoyed this content and want to learn more, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button so we can keep creating videos like this. Let us know in the comments what level of English you're at and what topics you'd like us to cover in the next episode. Also, check out the links in the description for additional resources to help you keep advancing. See you in the next video. And remember, English Learning Podcast is here to help you reach your English goals. Keep learning.